So like every event all around the country, High Times always likes to spotlight our veterans and how in so many different ways interacting with cannabis has benefited their lives. And this is today's version, and putting it together mainly are a couple of guys who have traveled all over the country and been a part of these panels and educational seminars. So I'm going to turn it over to the facilitator of today's panel, Steve Lull. But let's hear it for all of these guys to get started here. Steve Lull.
Hey, it's Jamie Lowell, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, give Jamie a round of applause, man. I know this man's been busy. That's right, he deserves that. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Jamie. It's really humble to be here today before anybody, and this is an amazing turnout. Hello, everybody. You guys in the back, can you hear me? This is a great turnout. Thank you very much for showing up to the High Times Cannabis Cup here in Michigan, huh? There you go. Now, if we're not a little closer to freedom because of events like this, then I just don't know what freedom is, you know what I'm saying? My name is Steve Lull. I grew up here in Michigan. I joined the Army in 1993. I served from 93 to 97 in the 82nd Airborne Division. I enlisted in a time of war. We were at war with Saddam Hussein and the evil army that was over there, whatever dictator of the week. And I had a lot of ideas as a kid. I was pretty patriotic. I watched all the war movies with my grandpa and my dad and my family. And I grew up in the gun culture that's so prevalent in America today, right? Can I get an amen? I mean, who else, right? Right, we played with, what did we play with? Little toy soldiers and cowboys and Indians, and who's got the bigger gun from day one, right? Right, look at our music, it reflects our culture. I mean, listen to Bob Dylan, listen to Masters of War, listen to Black Sabbath, War Pigs. I mean, some of these are anthems for some inner emotions that a lot of people in America carry around today. What did I do from 93 to 97? Well, I did whatever I was asked. I think that was the important part. Did I have a hand in where the Army sent me or didn't send me, or if they sent me downrange or if they didn't send me downrange? Would that be my fault? Nope. Myself, like all the people here on this panel, decided to write a check to the American citizens that whatever you need of me, I will do. So be it. This is my name. I love you. We can't show you any other way that we love you than by enlisting to serve you in such a capacity. You feel that? That's right. I'm pretty proud of Michigan and its history with veterans and wars of this country. We've really been pretty much at the ready to stand to defend. Our powder's always been ready. Our closets have always been full. Our food stores were ready. Michigan has stood at the ready of every battle our country has decided to engage itself in for whatever reason we decided to engage ourselves in. In starting this, I'd like to give a thank you to veterans of all wars. Every conflict, that's a horrible word. To deny that a conflict is a war, that's horrible. So let's just throw that out the window right now, okay? Korean War, thank you very much. Vietnam War, thank you very much. Panama War, thank you very much. The Iraqi War, thank you very much. Afghanistan War, thank you very much. The War on Terror, thank you very much. And you know what? Everyone in here today, can I testify to everyone out there who's a victim of the war on drugs, which is everyone who's in this room today, thank you for serving. There are people here who've gone to jail for us and done prison time for us. There are people here who lobby Congress for us. There are people in this track facility who have dedicated their lives to try to make cannabis more acceptable socially, civilly, and to help stave off the evils of this apparent social civil war that we're all engaged in currently. I didn't serve downrange for very long. I'm not like a lot of your vets. I don't have the combat designator in front of my name. I was a survivor of what what is referred to as a green ramp incident. It happened in the early 90s at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and Pope Air Force Base. There's a whole bunch of my brothers and sisters, paratroopers all alike, who were getting ready for an airborne op at around 3 or 4, just like we normally do. You know, we go through a training cycle. When you're getting ready to jump out of a plane, there's like 75,000 of you, so you all need to get trained a little bit before you get in the plane so you don't hurt the person in front of you or behind you. And while we were going through our training cycle and we were exiting the aircraft, we heard a mid-air collision. What's up, man? Can you hear me? Sharmy Golson, I love you. Hey, hands for Sharmy Golson. I really want you guys all to know that without that lady right there, I don't think Dakota and I would probably be standing or sitting here today. So thank you, Sharmy. Thank you very much. You do a lot for Michigan and cannabis. Thank you. And, you know, on that day, what had occurred was there was a mid-air collision. One of the fast-moving jet fighters was coming in to do a combat takeoff and landing where they rehearse what happens in the event that there's a hostile runway. So the fight jetter will come in, it'll hit the ground, it'll take off. Well, as it hit the ground and took back off, it hit a cargo plane that was trying to land. Pieces of both planes went everywhere. Part of that everywhere was they crashed into a large jet engine plane that me and a bunch of my friends were getting ready to go jump in and jump out of. We had live rounds, grenades, ammunition, the whole deal. And while we were going through our training cycle, you heard this large explosion. You know, you look up and every ounce of air is sucked right out of your lungs and you hear complete silence, nothing. There's just nothing there. At least that's what I went through. You know, and I knew something was wrong. And I looked to my left, and I looked over our mock trainers, and I saw a fireball just coming out of the mouth of the sky. And it bounced and it hit the ground and shredded into a million pieces, and those pieces clung to people like demons on fire, and they burned people right alive right in front of me. Watch the whole thing happen. Somehow I had to gather some courage because at the time I served as a combat medic, so you know what that means, right? Right over there in my aid bag are all the tools necessary for me to practice my trade, and now I'm being forced to apply that trade on people who just yesterday I hugged and just minutes ago said I love you too, and hey, you know, it's going to be a good op and we're going to be home soon. And here I was, the first soldier I came on, 3/4 of his body was burned to a crisp. 3/4 of his body, another medic, Patrick Malloy, reached this soldier at the same time. We began CPR on the soldier. I looked up and evaluated the situation further. I noticed the soldier had no brain cavity left. That was the first soldier that we came on and realized that we had to move on because there are others that we have to help, right? And that's, you have to come to that realization of the direst of circumstances is when you need to dig in the most and you need to find your inner strength the most, and you have to rise up and you have to rely on your brothers and you have to rely on your sisters and you have to rely on the community to help raise you up, right? Because that's when we need each other the most, right? When things really go down. Not when we're talking about what could happen, but when it really does happen, right? So, yep, that's my experience in the military. Now, when I transitioned, I had a 30-day transition cycle, right, guys? 30 days? Not very long at all. 30 days. Hi. And basically that included going down to the PX, going down to turn all your issue in, going down to make sure you didn't have any books out of the library. The psych eval that I received when I exited the military consisted of, hey, how do you feel? Are you eating regularly? Are you sleeping at night? And of course you're going to say, yeah, you want to get the hell out of there. You know, you're like, I'm done. I've done my time. I want to roll on out, you know. So it's not really a long transition cycle. You know, it's not a long transition cycle. To go from that to the civilian world was quite a struggle for a lot of people before me. Before my generation, our military veterans received a much horrible love affair from the state. The VA has a horrible history of treating its veterans very unfairly. If you know a veteran who was treated unfairly by the VA, put your hand in the air. Now, if you know a politician who has testified and said, I didn't know that things were that bad for veterans in our country, raise your hand. Shame on those politicians, right? Right? Well, you know, you come to that point in your life, you realize that there's all these problems in the world, and how do you solve them? How do you solve these problems, right? You realize that there's all these issues, how do you solve them, right? Well, I met Dakota a few years ago. Through the craziest of circumstances, social media, we met, we started talking. Turns out the dude was in a band, he was a drummer, and he wanted to go on a tour. Turns out I happen to have a tour bus. My daughter said, Dad, you got to check this out. This is perfect. And I said, what is this? And she showed me the ad, and I said, no way. 48 hours later, we're on a 2-week tour from Michigan to Chicago to Florida to New York, back to Michigan, right again? This is Dakota Serna. You guys are going to meet him here in a minute. I got to meet him on a very intimate level, and during our travels late at night at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, we would talk about these problems. Say, yeah, man, the world's messed up. Oh, the cannabis people in Michigan are going to raw act. Oh, you know, what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? Well, by the end of that 2 week together, we decided to form up and just start seeing what we could do about it. We went down and we got involved with other activists here in Michigan, Sharmy Golson, Jamie Lowell, Rick Thompson, Josie Scoggins. The list goes on. Josh Covert, ladies and gentlemen, wonderful activist attorney here in the state of Michigan. The list goes on. John Davis. And we just happened to, Dakota and I happened to hook up at a time where there was legislation in effect that the Michigan Marijuana Act, they were wondering if PTSD should or should not be approved for veterans. Now, really, is that really a question? These guys just got back from war. That seems pretty dangerous. And you're going to say, oh, marijuana is more dangerous than what they just went through, right? I mean, come on, man. Let's be real. And Dakota and I and a bunch of other veterans were able to sort of help push along the idea that the veterans needed to be approved for PTSD. Can I get a round of applause for that? That was rough. That was real rough. So, you know, one thing I try to do, this isn't about me. Bobby Black, Sharmy Golson, some of the organizers for the Cannabis Cup a couple years ago invited Dakota and I out here to talk, and then we were able to go on the road, and we were able to go to Colorado, to Washington, to California, to Vegas, to all these places, and talk with other veterans organizations, other people just within the cannabis community in general, and we were able to get a larger scope of what's really going on here. I want to say that cannabis healed me because cannabis helped create community. Anybody think that's true? Right? Like, I was addicted to pain pills. I had the VA script. I had the alcohol issues. I had the anger management issues. I was a raging jerk. I hate myself when I look back in the mirror previous to cannabis use and music. All right? And when I got off the pain pills, I got out of the alcohol, I did music and marijuana as a medicine. But I think the common factor is community. Every time I got together to smoke a joint, it was with somebody else. It was another musician, it was another veteran, it was somebody else, right? I want to pass this mic to a really good friend of mine. I'm proud to call him a friend. He's done some amazing things over the years. He's accomplished some amazing feats. Most recently, this gentleman has become a father, ladies and gentlemen. He had recently given birth to a wonderful baby girl, him and Josie Scoggins. I'm telling you, he's amazing. He puts up with a lot of stuff, even me, and my daughter, and our family. And I like to consider him family. Ladies and gentlemen, Dakota Blue Serna.
Thanks, man. I'm Dakota Serna, and when I was a wee lad of 19 years old, right after high school, I joined the Marine Corps in response to what happened to us on 9/11. Long story short, you know, I wanted the blood, I wanted payback, and so I joined the infantry, and I got my war. My unit was the main effort for Operation Fan and Fury in 2004, and so that's where I got my combat experience, and did a lot of things that I shouldn't have done, saw a lot of stuff I shouldn't have saw, and you know, and in the end, the most horrible thing was losing my best friend Dale, watching him die, and so I was rather torn up. I became a monster at that point when Dale died, and you know, I lost my soul at that day on November 14th of 2004, and when I came back, was only a couple of weeks where I was put on prescription pills, and I still had about 2 years left of my service. So 2 years on the pills, drinking, going through my own personal hell. Everything fell apart. I was married right after I came back. That fell apart, and I lost myself. I was alone on these pills, and it continued after I got out of the service. And after about 4 years of taking these pills and losing my mind, my insides being eaten apart, pushing away everybody I loved, I finally stopped taking my pills and smoked a joint. And that was the last time I ever took any pills that the VA prescribed me. And oh man, I don't even know where to begin to describe my love for the cannabis community and the people that are here, man. Like, every single one of you play a pivotal role in all of this. It's, you know, if it wasn't for High Times, if it wasn't for individual people here, we wouldn't be here, man. Like the crazy things that have all had to happen to be here, but it's all for a purpose, because my brothers and sisters are killing themselves at such a rapid rate from what's going on when they come back from war. I mean, it's a hard thing to understand, and we're not asking for people to understand, but we are suffering. And through the cannabis community, it brought forth other people suffering too. We all suffer together, and we're all healing together, and that's from every point of every walk of life, from all over the place. People from all over the nation are here coming together to say this works, because cannabis saved my life, and through doing all of this, I met these guys. Cannabis saved their lives too. And each one of these guys has just such a unique story, and it just kind of brightened my perspective on it. You don't have to just go through combat to be screwed up in the head. You don't, you know, there's so much.
Yeah.
You know, there's stuff that happens to our brains that's god awful, and cannabis is not the answer. But it's just the thing that helps cope with it. It helped me slow my mind down so I wouldn't put my fist through the wall or through somebody's face. You know, and it's that thing that allowed me to reconnect to society and allowed to bring me to other plant medicines that allowed me to reconnect to society. And through that, I met these beautiful gentlemen here, man. These guys are amazing guys, and I consider them all family. I just met Mike here, you know, Brian here not too long ago, Ian, just in some crazy circumstances, and they're family, man. We all did some crazy stuff, saw some crazy things, and so, you know, it's awesome that we're here sharing our story, because as it progresses into the future, more people are opening their hearts to their fellow veterans or to a family member. They're smoking a joint or whatever they're doing. They're not drinking. They're not taking pills that are killing them. And they're able to cope. They're able to deal with it. They're able to go on. They're able to live. One simple plant, they're able to live. And that's just smoking it. And I don't even need to go in how the oils are curing cancer and just doing amazing things. We all know what's going on. So it's my goal to wake up everybody, wake up my veteran brothers, get us together to unite, because we don't want to overthrow the government, but they need to fucking change.
Yeah.
This is garbage. And it's a noticeable thing that the veteran word to the politicians does have some sort of voice. So we're standing up together to say you're doing it wrong and you need to change. And if you're not going to change, we're coming for you. We will. And I'm not afraid to say that, because I'm not afraid of those fuckers. And that's the thing it is, because they are keeping us down. They're killing us. My brothers and sisters are dying every day, and it breaks my heart. There was one guy on Memorial Day, while I was off in Lansing doing a thing, Drew Winkler, killed himself on Memorial Day. I failed. Or did I? Or do we keep fighting? Do we keep fighting for the brother that's going to go home maybe tonight, maybe not, and pull the trigger? And each one of us have faced that struggle. And I want to pass the mic to my friend here, Barry, man. He's a good guy. He's been on the road with me the last couple months, just tearing shit up, along with Ian, and along with everybody here, Brian and Steve, man. So I want to pass the mic over to my brother here.
Yeah, my PTSD had me good. My transition sucked. The doctors put me on a lot of scripts. Since 2001, I've been on a shitload of scripts. I was given liver disease through my scripts. Attempted to commit suicide multiple times. Yeah, cannabis saved my life, for real. It opened the door to other plant medicines. I just got back from Peru. And after coming back from Peru, I had my blood work done, and I'm healed. I'm healed of all my diseases.
You hear that?
Through plant medicine. Yeah, we gotta stop. We gotta stop the suicides. We've gotta take a minute and not step over what is burdening our society. But we've let our government create that burden, so we need to help them out. We need to help each other out. Give each other a hand. Love each other. It's easy for us vets to come together and band together, because we have that common experience, and we all swore on that oath to protect the Constitution and the people that the Constitution protects. And that's what we're doing. You know, we're up here, we're doing it. You know, I could be home with my kids. You know, I don't like being in crowds. I don't like being on stage. You know, I could be elsewhere, smoking a joint. So yeah, I'm just asking for help. This is my buddy Ian. He also went to Peru and is a vet. Fighting to make change.
Thanks, Barry. My name is Ian Benouis, and My story is I grew up in Hawaii when cannabis was totally part of the culture. It was totally decriminalized. There was no drug trade, even though drugs came in, because it was homegrown. And it was no big deal. We could go pick mushrooms right outside of my high school where all the cows grazed. And so I grew up in that environment right before DARE, right before they started Operation Green Harvest. It was the first time all this excess military buildup was started using in the drug war, right? In the late 70s, early 80s. They did that in Hawaii first, and then they started doing it in California. And so what that did in Hawaii was give us the first meth epidemic in the country. So I was lucky. I went to West Point. I was a Black Hawk helicopter pilot in the Army. Started deploying down to Panama. Went down there deploying down there for 2 years before Operation Just Cause. And I don't have any trauma from war because it was a field trip compared to Iraq and Afghanistan. But I have sexual trauma and car accidents and childhood trauma. And basically, on my way out of the military, I had besides Panama, my wife left me. I almost drowned off Santa Cruz. I had all these things that woke me up, and I started on my spiritual path, and that was through these plant medicines. I started using these plant medicines. MDMA, LSD, mescaline, psilocybin, DMT, and ayahuasca. This is like 19 years ago. And so that got me in a good enough place for the first 3 years of my marriage where I could be a good father and a good husband. And then my kids were like my medicine for the next 18 years. And then about 2 years ago, I met veterans. And I had no idea that even I had PTSD or that I was a victim of trauma or what trauma was. And I met veterans, and the love that I felt for my fellow veterans totally opened me up. And that's what got me on this path to bring this healing that I've been benefiting from personally and share with veterans. So, like Gary said, we took 5 other veterans, 6 of us total down to Peru with 3 shaman brothers in the Shipibo tradition, and basically did a whole plant diet for 10 days and with 3 ayahuasca ceremonies to specifically try to heal war trauma. And you know what? It works. Good news is it works. Veterans supporting other veterans, that's what makes this thing work. It's the love between the veterans. See, everyone's just talking about community. That's what creates the sacred, safe space for the medicine to work for all of us. And so now that we've done that, we've captured it and make it into at least a documentary, if not a series, and then try to use that to raise more money to send more veterans out of Peru.
Hey everyone, how are you? Good? You doing good? Good. My name's Mike Whiter. I'm a veteran. I was in the Marine Corps from 1996 to 2006. In 1999, my unit, 3rd Battalion, 8th Marines, was the first ground unit in Kosovo. And so I was in Kosovo in 1999. And then in 2004, I went to Iraq. I was at Abu Ghraib prison, 2004, 2005. Came home from Abu Ghraib after I got hurt, and excuse me, and I was on pain pills first. Realized I was having a really serious depression and anxiety problem. I was skipping work. I was, telling my gunny that I was sick. I was a staff sergeant at the time. I was a platoon sergeant. I needed to lead Marines, and I was so depressed, and they had me on pills, and I just didn't know what happened to my life. So I got out already addicted to pills. I ended up going to a psychiatrist, and I got put on a medical evaluation board, and after 11 years, I was put out on my ass into the civilian world after identifying as a Marine, as nothing but a Marine for 11 years. And I didn't know what to do with my life. Got out, went into the VA system just like all these guys, and the Marine Corps diagnosed me with a personality disorder not otherwise specified in 2006. They didn't diagnose me with post-traumatic stress disorder. That wasn't even a thing that they were diagnosing people with in 2006 because they didn't want to pay us. They would have had to medically retire me instead of medically discharge me. and they would have had to pay me for the rest of my life, and they didn't want to do that. So the VA diagnosed me with PTSD in 2006 after I got out, and immediately put me on all kinds of pills. SSRIs, benzodiazepines, opiates. I was on methadone for neck pain. I was on Klonopin, Xanax, you name it, 40 different medications over a period of 5 years. And, you know, I sat on my couch and drooled on myself for those 5 years. I was watching a National Geographic special on my television one day, just like I did every day. I sat in front of the TV and got fat and watched TV and watched National Geographic, the History Channel. I just learned stuff on TV for 5.5 years. And I saw a thing on the National Geographic Channel about veterans medicating with cannabis. And I called a friend, had her bring me a joint. We smoked a joint and I laughed. Yeah. It had been years since I laughed like that, and I realized that I was feeling things. And those medications, while they do get rid of the anxiety and they do suppress it, they also suppress every other human emotion that you experience. So I came to realize that these pills were killing me. I had overdosed 3 times trying to kill myself. I had been institutionalized at the VA 3 times for those suicide attempts. And I didn't know who I was anymore. And I started to smoke cannabis, and I ditched the pills that day. All my pills went in the trash. I withdrew by staying as high as I possibly could on the worst weed I could possibly have gotten. I was smoking Mexican brick for 2 months, trying to get off of all this crap. And eventually I did it. And I smoke a lot of marijuana now. And I say that marijuana saved my life. Marijuana literally saved my life, because if I hadn't started using cannabis, I would have overdosed on those pills, either intentionally or unintentionally, or eventually they would have just eaten my liver away and I would have died. Because I would get a bottle of Klonopin, 2 milligram Klonopin, 30 of them in a bottle, and I'd take the whole bottle. And just hope I didn't wake up in the morning. I didn't care. Cannabis helped me regain my feelings, helped me open up in therapy, and created a community for me. And I'm from Philadelphia. My community, we're illegal in Philadelphia. So it's a little bit different there than it is here. I don't have a lot of veteran friends up there because a lot of them are afraid to come out. They're afraid to lose their VA benefits. A lot of these guys sign pain contracts, and if you don't know about that, when you sign a contract with the VA, it's called an opiate contract. If you sign that contract and you pop positive for cannabis, they'll take your pills that they got you addicted to from you and make you withdraw from them. And then there you go. And then that's how we end up here, because fuck them. We're healing ourselves. We don't need the VA to tell us what we're doing. We're healing ourselves. And cannabis helps you feel, and in order to heal, you have to feel. And it sounds so fucking corny, but I say it all the time because it makes sense. So I started a project. I'm sorry, guys. I'm stoned right now. I ended up regaining my life. I went to art school for photography and became a photographer. I've always loved it, so I did that. And while I was in art school, one of my professors, I was having a hard time with models, because I still have a hard time socializing with civilians. Like, I can talk to these guys about anything, but if I'm talking to you, if you're not a vet, I'm not, it's just weird. It's different for me. But I had to shoot models, these 18, 19-year-old kids that I just couldn't interact with. And my professor said, well, vets. Why don't you just shoot vets? Why don't you go home and do a self-portrait? So that's what I did, except I took it a step further. I put on my Marine Corps blouse with my name on one side and U.S. Marines on the other side. with my rank insignia of staff sergeant, sat in front of my camera with my pills in my one hand on the U.S. Marines side of my blouse, and my cannabis in my other hand on the whiter side of my blouse, as in my last name, not the actual paleness of my blouse. So I took that photograph, and that photograph ended up going viral. I started a campaign called Operation Overmed. Met a lot of other veterans through that. If you search hashtag Operation Overmed on Instagram, on Google, anywhere, it'll come up with those portraits. But so I started that photo essay, and that photo essay changed my life even further because it advanced a career for me, and it gave me another purpose in life. And that's really what a lot of veterans are lacking when they come home and get put on all these pills, is a purpose. And that's what we need in life, is we need a purpose. Everybody needs a purpose. Every single one of you needs a purpose. And, you know, letting other veterans who might commit suicide know about cannabis is my purpose now. And doing it through photography is my purpose as well. So thank you for listening to me. I'm going to pass the mic over. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brian Austin. My military career started right here in Michigan as a schoolboy at the Hall of the Divine Child, a military school in Monroe. From that, went from 9th grade, got my GED, and went right into the Army. Didn't get enough out of it there with the different deployments that they fed me, so kind of out in the civilian world. And just like we all say, it just wasn't right. This wasn't it. Lived in South Florida at the time, had the beach, had everything. But turned around, went right back into the Navy. Spent, you know, a lot of time there as a diver. Didn't realize any of the effects that happened to me to the different deployments that I went for that now that I was in. Just doing what was right. Got back out, ended up becoming a contractor. Went to work for the Department of Defense, went to work for the State Department, for FEMA. Still, it's the same exact cycle you're in. You're on the same 12 hours a day, dealing with disaster and dealing with shit. You know what I mean? So, I had the best doctors in the country behind me, thinking that I'm going to do what's right because I'm going to listen to them, I'm going to take their pills, I'm going to go to their therapy, and it's going to make everything okay. Everything just kept getting worse. My family got more pushed away. You know, my relationships would break down, but there would always be another disaster, another deployment to go to. I was actually at the World Trade Center. I spent 196 days there before I turned around and deployed overseas. And so that in itself is a completely different combat zone when you're stepping on torsos and you're stuck in an area where there is no defense. You know what I mean? There's just disaster. And then with FEMA for the next 12 years, it was that same thing. So listening to the experts, because you're in a professional world, you're going to take the pills that they say, this is the one that's going to work. Until you start seeing the side effects of those side effects more than the effect that it's supposed to give you. Then you start reading. You start doing the more investigation in your own mind to decide, why is this happening? Why? And you learn that the drug companies that make these drugs, they test themselves. There's no FDA inspector watching to make sure all that stuff makes sense. They test it, they put it out, and then all of a sudden when it doesn't work, oh shit, recall that. Viagra is your best, you know, key point. That was supposed to be a heart medicine. Now all the side effects was hard-on. Hey, guess what? We just made a hard-on medicine. Woo! Don't worry about the heart no more, because we're making money over here. So until you got to the point to where pharmaceutical is not the answer and came to cannabis, because in my life, I was a government employee. I was a federal employee out doing missions, whether it be here or overseas. So me being an undercover pot smoker as a kid wasn't the answer when people were telling me, hey, this is now medicine. I was listening to the drones feeding me the opiates, like Mike was saying, and the rest of them about 15 different cocktails a day, not try this Klonopin, this Valium, this Seroquel. I mean, shit, Seroquel is just a death drug, period. I mean, Cat Williams got his whole stand-up career this year based on Seroquel, right? So, again, until you can get away from out of that out-of-the-box thinking of what these doctors don't even get modern education after they get into their practice, there is no continuing education for doctors anymore. It's a pharmaceutical rep showing up and saying, if they've got this, it's this pill. If they've got this, it's this pill. So now you've got a salesman classifying your diagnosis through the doctor by him handing you packet 1, packet 2, or you get all the packets. But that's not the cure, because marijuana is the gateway drug. It's the gateway to natural health. It's the gateway to holistic medicine. It's us blowing off the natural Indians from when we first landed here on Plymouth Rock, to the Native Americans in South America, to overseas, to saying, no, we're smarter than you. We've got these great big colleges, and we're going to create all this pharmaceutical bullshit, and we're going to cure you. And look where we're going. We're turning right back around and saying, spiritual God of the land, heal me. So that's where I'm coming from at. That is where my basically recoveries come from. That's what changed it from being able to cope with stuff to have my life back and be able to live again. So, you know, you can stay on the Thorazine shuffle, like you're saying, of being stuck on that couch for that 5 years. That's all it is shutting your mind down so you don't think anymore. If you don't think, the government's got you right where they want you, as a drone. So, thank you very much for showing up. Thanks High Time for doing this. And hey, keep smoking, goddammit. Gosh darn it.
Hey, so what do you think? That's your veterans panel for the High Times Cannabis Cup, Michigan, huh? Yeah, help, you know, support your local veteran, especially if they're veterans and cannabis activist combination. Take a good look at them, see if they're worth getting involved with, and by all means try. This is an amazing example of what veterans and just human beings can do when they care about the world around them and they want to make things better for cannabis, right? I mean, these guys are good paragons. I would let any one of these people here represent me as a veteran and as a human being. Thank you very much, you guys. So, I wanted to give some shout-outs to the crew here that was involved in putting all this together. Dakota has been like vice president of the Green Union for a few years. Him and his whole family really dedicated themselves to changing the climate, and the attitude, and the perception of cannabis consumers here in the state of Michigan. I guess it might sound absurd to say Google Dakota, but for all means, Google his Twitter. It excites him. It's man, it's a pretty exceptional group of people up here. I would like to address some common concerns. I think a general consensus is that cannabis creates community. Would you all agree? Could you share with the people here just a short story about what that means to you?
Absolutely. I learned from my brothers from Vietnam. You know, I learned that when I went to war wanting to go to war, but when I came back, my eyes were open to what the government actually did with me. It wasn't what I signed up for. And, you know, my brothers from Vietnam, some of them were forced to go. Some of them didn't have a choice. Some of them fled. You know, there was such a strong movement. And when they came back, they were just chewed apart by the people from here at home. And so I know those guys are hurting. I was hurting. And then I went on the road and found that these guys were hurting for just different shit that happens to us along the way. And then that brought me to that women, like 50% of women that serve in the military are raped or brutalized. And it opened my heart up to that. And it was just a flood of just amazing emotion. And it's like the things that the people went through Vietnam, what our daughters go through wanting to serve their country. That's not what we signed up for, but we suffer because of it, but we don't have to. And what we're doing here as brothers and sisters is we're uniting together because this is what we signed up for. This is what we put our lives on the line for. Each and every one of you that the government just tossed away, that's what you put your life on the line for, because I know no matter what fucking threat comes over that line, we'll be there. Every veteran will be there to stand in between that threat and what we love. And this and cannabis was my catalyst to getting that back. And so these gentlemen right here, and it's been amazing knowing these people. It's been amazing from the people out there that have donated their money, their time, and just their support and love to this cause, because it's growing. It's growing and it's growing, and we're going to make a change, because this is going to have to be the voice that spills that cup that says things aren't right anymore. Things need to change. Things need to be beautiful for everybody. Not just veterans, not just politicians, not just cops, everyone. And I want to thank everyone. Barry, he gives his heart and his soul to this cause. Ian, Mike, Brian, Steve, man, and everybody out there, fucking thank you. And keep it up. Go out there and share. Start the fire. Be the fire. And if you can't vote, get these assholes out of office. Because they're killing us. They're killing our children. They're killing our grandparents, our parents. They're killing our brothers and sisters. Get them out of office.
The people that are making the rules are you and me in just a different seat. They're no different. They're no better. They're people that just ran for an office. Someone elected and got an opinion. So it's our opinion. Right. To change their opinion.
See, these guys are going to do it no matter what. I think that's what drives the herd, right? Round of applause for the drive presented here, right? Ladies and gentlemen. I would... Go ahead, Barry. Let me hear you, brother. I want to hear you.
I just wanted to touch on community. For me, cannabis reestablished family. I mean, it brought relationships that were broke back together because I was able to get off the scripts and actually focus on my family. Function. Cannabis gave me the patience to allow people to be people. To shed, maybe even, shed some empathy on people also, through my patience and my mouth. It was about building family. And with that, it moved into community. I help lots of people in my town. I help lots of my friends. We all help each other. We all itch each other's back. And if we could just keep continuing to do that, whether it be through cannabis or just, recognizing your neighbor needing a fucking hug, whatever.
I definitely know that cannabis builds community because I met these guys here in Washington, D.C. It was last year at this conference, and just proved the equation over and over again that cannabis plus veterans equals love. And that's instant community. So that's how we were able to build our community there. And then, like when we were down in Peru getting ready to do this plant medicine diet of 10 days long, it's really going to be long and arduous. We used cannabis. There were people in that group who didn't know each other. And we got everyone together and used cannabis for everyone to be able to get comfortable and build that family that we're going to need to take exactly into this arduous ordeal. So.
My community is a little different than these guys' community. I've never. Today's the first time I've met any of these guys. So in Philadelphia, we don't have a huge veteran community, and I haven't traveled around very much to meet people. But I met this guy in the front row taking a picture of me right now, Nicky Allen Poe. You'll see him at 5:30 on the activist panel. Yeah. He got me into activism, and activism has been my community. Just cannabis activism has been my community. Not necessarily veteran community, but even though I love hanging out with vets and talking to vets and sharing our experiences, my community experience is just a little bit different. Not that either one's right or wrong or anything like that. It's just it's living in an illegal area and being stuck with who you're stuck with, So I love you, brother. All right, Brian.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I'm coming from, I only spend part-time up here. I have a place up here, but I also have a farm in Kentucky that we grow hemp at, and then, home is South Florida. So in traveling between all three of them, when we were on our journey of the Cup journey last year, going across country, I'm on probation with the federal government for violation of weed and transportation of my own medicine, right? And here I'm working for the federal government, so They can't fire me for it because I'm already on, work comp for them fucking me up to begin with and putting me on the medicine. So it was a whole catch-22. I mean, so, the next panel would be in the lawbreakers against weed, But, so totally understand, but it's still, no matter where you're at with it, it just is a family of love that brings you together. You're not competing against anybody, and it comes down to when you still look at where the roots come from, the origin of the Native Americans, whether it be here, South America, or Europe, or South African stuff. You've got the fact that they're all coming from a mellow, loving place, and their whole basis was coming from a root-based cures of cannabis, ayahuasca, other Native American things that, we're just now the VA is looking more at LSD treatments than they are medical marijuana right now, because it's a chemical compound they can look at and say, I understand that, compared to this plant that I still don't get 100%. So now why can't we look at the native of what that same LSD is, and whether it be peyotes, mushrooms, ayahuasca, that we already know the facts of. It's just like us trying to think we're the only ones inventing the statistics or the information that this stuff comes from, when Israel's been doing this since 1976. Their common day active duty military get issued marijuana instead of pills. Their Alzheimer patients get given marijuana at their retirement homes instead of pills. So I mean, we need to just basically look at the world and get our information from them, and stop thinking that we are the world and that we're the only ones that can create information.
There you go. I'd like to discuss a little bit of the history between veterans and the government post-service. There was a time in this country if a veteran experienced what we now term as PTSD, they would incarcerate this veteran at a mental health facility, often located off the beaten path somewhere in the back 40. And they would isolate these veterans from their friends, their family, and they would perform experiments on them. Am I wrong?
No, that's 100%.
Am I wrong?
And this
All right.
in that same time is when we stopped true medicine. Because
That's right.
They would give us tests back in the 80s.
Yeah, passing the microphone because they talk. Don't you want to hear him if he's going to talk, right?
Hello. Okay.
All right, now we don't have a lot of time, Brian.
All right, but back in the 80s, in the military, they used to do a test with us if we came back from any kind of deployment base, from mother base, we'd call it, and it was a chemical balance test. They didn't give a shit if we were crazy or not. They wanted to see if our adrenaline was too high, our dopamines were too low, a chemical balance test. That's what psychiatrists used to do to everybody when they would come up to you and say, hey, I'm depressed. Well, let's check your chemical balance before I start giving you all sorts of prescriptions and fuck your world up. Because now you've got 8 side effects, plus your chemical imbalance, and I still haven't helped you, but I just made money for me and my pharmaceutical rep. All right? So now we don't have chemical imbalance tests anymore, because now we got something in their world that's better. We got labeling and profiling. It started out with our kids with ADHD in school, because it was easier to label them and profile them, put them in a special class. All we are is the next generation of the government's labeling and profile. Colorado, with them not wanting to put PTSD on the panel, it's not that we can't get our card there, it's that they look at everything individually, whether it be depression, stress, whatever it may be that makes up the complex cocktail of PTSD. Here, in other states, when we think it's just them taking the easy way out and using a label. You know what I mean? And that's where that whole testing is at.
There you go. Now look back a little farther into history, the way the government has treated veterans post-service. After incarcerating them in these mental health facilities out on the back 40, they would perform experiments on them. These experiments would include shock treatment, water torture, lobotomies, Bang Bang Maxwell's silver hammer. They would do this and say it was in the better treatment of veterans and in their best interest.
We were the only other people
now,
to go from a rat to a person.
Right. And, this only stopped because organizations formed up. Veterans organizations were mainly at the forefront of reforming the conditions. Veterans organizations back in the day, like the Grand Army of the Republic, it's a historical organization formed by veterans to help veterans. It was one of the first. It pioneered the pattern for the veterans of foreign wars, American veterans, and the American Legion. It is a fact that through community, we can better help each other. We can all agree with that? A while ago, Dakota and I and a bunch of other people formed a group called the Green Union here in Michigan. It's a 501c3. We exist to strengthen the community through art, education, and entertainment. Part of that programming is, Barry Richardson, Dakota, Ian, Mike, Brian. These guys all got together and they went and they did this healing routine and this healing path, this healing journey down to South America. That's a prime example of what people can do when they care about each other. Am I wrong? Like, did you follow what I'm saying? I know I'm kind of rambling, but these guys got together and they made the situation better for themselves. That's right. You didn't wait for a doctor. You didn't wait for legislation to be passed. I mean, Dakota doesn't wait for legislation to be passed. He's down there knocking on their door. This dude's down there in Michigan knocking on the Lansing Capitol door saying, please change things for the whole country. Can I get a thank you? Yeah. Just like some applause here. You know, Barry's doing a lot in his neighborhood as a veteran activist. He's got groups of veterans that meet over at his place. They do a lot of things together, some we probably can't talk about because it might be printed. But, you know, therapy, man, and he's doing it in his neighborhood. Ian is doing it in his neighborhood, you know, and Mike's doing it in his neighborhood. Brian's doing it in his neighborhood. That's amazing, and this is the ripple effect that was caused because of the Cannabis Cup here in Michigan just a few years ago, right? So thank you to Bobby Black. Thank you to Sharmi Golson. Thank you, you know, to Rick Thompson, Jamie Lowell. Thank you to Dakota Serna, Barry Richardson, Ian, Mike, Brian. Thank you for putting this sort of event together and keeping it going because it's not easy. There's been a lot of out-of-pocket expenses throughout the last couple of years. There's been a lot of things that these people have had to endure coming out of the closet. You know, these people are very highly visible and they're outspoken for veterans that may not be able to speak for themselves. So before they take the mic from me, ladies and gentlemen, on the note of veterans that can't speak for themselves, man, could I get 30 seconds of silence? Would that be happy, guys? Would that be cool? So if you could bow your head, I want to pay some respect for all of our loved ones and all of those that we cherish that might not be here physically, but are hopefully here in heart and here in spirit. Thank you for allowing this to happen. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us at the Veterans Panel of the High Time Cannabis Cup in Michigan. All right, I can hear it again for these guys. This is great. This is